For about 12,000 years, technology has improved. As a species, it's been one of our adaptive strengths. But just how far can it go? Today, we're going to talk about the long-term future of technology, looking at things like turning the solar system into a giant virtual reality. I'm Chris Horst. Let's peer into the vortex. Technological maturity is a stage of technological development where the bugs and inefficiencies have been accounted for and it has gotten to the limit of what is physically possible. For most of our technology, we aren't anywhere near technological maturity. We've got a long way to go in a lot of areas. Today, we're going to talk about what the extreme future of technology might look like under known science. Why limit ourselves to known science? Paradigms shift. New breakthroughs are discovered. Back at the end of the 19th century, there was a time when we thought we basically understood everything about science, and all that was left was to measure things at higher and higher precision. Then we had the quantum revolution. So why assume our current understanding won't be flipped upside down too? What gives us the pride to think we know anything near everything now? There is one major difference between our knowledge now and our knowledge then: unification. Back in the day, sciences were thought of as different things. We had physics, we had chemistry, we had biology, and they were all generally considered to be different studies. Most of them were basically cataloging. We saw something, we wrote it down, and we had lists, and we had tables, and we did have Newton's laws, but they were basically just statements that were like, yeah, that works, and so it's true. We didn't really understand anything about them. In the past 100 years, we have gone from taking the universe as a whole bunch of separate ideas and linking them together as puzzle pieces, bringing us a picture of a universe that is one connected thing. From this tradition, we got the hierarchy of sciences, from math to physics to chemistry to biology to psychology to the social sciences. These are no longer seen as completely separate domains, but they all relied upon one another and supervened upon one another. We know for certain that there are things that we don't know yet, but the expectation that we have is that everything will come together as one jigsaw puzzle. Now, that doesn't prove that known science is true science, and there isn't some quantum-like revolution that we'll run into which will break open the universe in ways we never dreamed of before. But it is evidence in favor of the current paradigm being more reliable than the classical paradigm we had before, or the paradigms we had before Newton. And there's another reason to stick with known science. It has so much potential that hasn't been tapped by science fiction yet. So, let's talk about the future of technology. To start off, we'll talk about civilization as a whole, particularly from the point of how much energy it uses. For this, we use the Kardashev scale. A K1 civilization has command over all of the energy of its planet. This includes solar energy hitting the planet, it includes geothermal energy, all that stuff. A K1 civilization would be able to maintain its environment, its climate, its ecosphere, and it would be able to do feats of geoengineering, such as an orbital ring, which is a ring around the entire planet that is rotating around the planet so fast that it's orbiting, which can have platforms on top of it which we can use to launch spaceships and stuff. It might be able to green deserts, create artificial islands and land masses, and weather patterns and sea currents. A K2 civilization would have command of all the energy of its solar system. This means the energy of all the planets and asteroids and moons and other bodies, and also command of all the power of its star. A K2 civilization would have a Dyson sphere, which is generally not actually a sphere. It's a swarm of solar-collecting satellites that would range from within Mercury's orbit, perhaps even within the sun itself, all the way out to the edge of the solar system. This swarm of satellites would power civilizations on planets and moons, and it would power artificial continent-sized space habitats between the planets. A K3 civilization would have command over all the power of its entire galaxy. All the stars, all the planets, the white dwarfs, the neutron stars, the black holes, even the monster black hole at the center. A K3 civilization would be able to do things like move solar systems and remove mass from the giant stars so that they don't go supernova. There is also, added after Kardashev, a K4 civilization, which uses all the energy available to it in the entire universe. This could simply be spreading out the reaches of the observable universe, or it could gather up those distant galaxies and bring them closer together so that the expansion of the universe doesn't separate them eternally. If we want to go into speculative science, there could also be a K5 civilization which has access to all the energy in the multiverse. What would life in these societies look like, and what kinds of technology would they have? Let's look at first energy generation. Right now we use fossil fuels, nuclear fission, solar power, and a variety of other renewable sources for energy. There are others, some of which would be much more efficient and yield a lot more than what we have right now. Among those include nuclear fusion, which is different from fission. Fission takes heavy radioactive elements and breaks them apart, giving us that radioactive nuclear binding energy. Nuclear fusion takes light elements and fuses them together, which gives us a lot more energy than fission. There is also solar energy. Now, we have debates about how efficient solar energy is these days, but what these debates forget is that we are one planet, and there's a sun, and the sun is radiating energy in all directions, not just where the Earth is. That's a lot of power. A lot. So, the chief source of energy for a K2 civilization, one that can use all the resources of its solar system, will be solar power. Third is black hole radiation. You've heard of the equation E equals mc squared, right? There's a lot of energy packed into mass. Nuclear fusion can get a good chunk of that energy, but black holes can give us all of it. By a quirk of quantum physics, energy can escape from a black hole through a process called Hawking radiation. You often hear an explanation for Hawking radiation like there's a pair of virtual particles that pop into existence and one of them falls into the black hole and the other one goes away. That explanation is completely wrong. The actual explanation is really hard to understand, and I don't really understand it. But it's probably true. We haven't tested it, obviously. Nevertheless, there are calculations that we can do for the evaporation rate of black holes. And by evaporation, we mean radiation of energy. The interesting thing about black hole radiation is the smaller the black hole, the faster it radiates. If we had a black hole with the mass of a mountain crammed down past atomic size, past nuclear size, smaller than the diameter of a proton, then we would have a black hole that radiates with the same power output as a modern day nuclear reactor. Now, making these black holes would be really, really hard, but it's possible. So a technologically mature civilization could do it. And so on space habitats that are far away from stars, maybe traveling between stellar systems, we could expect them to be powered by black hole generators, perhaps several or hundreds of them. And because they're so small, we don't have to worry about them tearing up the ships or people falling into them. You may be wondering about antimatter, since when it is paired with matter, it also converts 100% matter to energy. There are two major problems with it though. For one, in order to make it, you have to put in at least as much energy as you want to get out. There aren't exactly antimatter repositories anywhere that we could mine. The second problem with it is that it's more volatile than anything else in the universe, because even the slightest touch with regular matter releases 100% of its energy. A can of antimatter equals a nuclear bomb. Even touching the side of the container or the tiniest micro leak, it explodes. And you thought nuclear meltdowns were bad. So antimatter will probably be used for something because it exists, but not for energy generation. Next, let's look at computers. Computation ability has been increasing exponentially since the computer was invented. This trend will come to an end someday. There is a limit by the laws of physics for how good a computer can be, and that limit is a black hole. We are far from the plateau of what computers are capable of. We can imagine that in a few million years from now, we will have things like programmable matter that can be linked in a network the size of an entire planet, which the internet is kind of a network the size of an entire planet, but our houses aren't made of computers yet. I envision a world covered with computronium. That is material upon which computations can happen. We build our houses from it. We build our roads from it. Our trees grow out of it. And we turn our planet into a giant computer. This would bring with it the option for virtual existence, taking our conscious minds and uploading it into the computer virtual reality network. This conversion of matter to computronium could be taking place throughout the whole solar system, converting the surface of every planet and asteroid and moon into a place that we can connect to via the network. And if we live as digital entities within this network, we'll be able to travel on light beams anywhere in the solar system, or for a K3 civilization, anywhere in the galaxy. What will these people be like? Certainly not humans as we currently recognize ourselves, but something we gradually change into over the centuries and millennia. This will include artificial intelligence and artificial superintelligence, connected networks of consciousness that are limited by a combination of their size and the speed of light. We could have brains the size of a planet. They could do pretty much anything they wanted. Contemplate science and philosophy, play games, do all of the things that make existence meaningful and worthwhile. They could download themselves into androids and live outside the matrix. And why stop at a human android? Why not a dog android, or a stingray android, or a giant tentacled space squid android? You might notice that this is different from how we live now in some pretty extreme ways. There are a lot of things about the human condition that have been true for us forever that will be solvable with technology. Things like death. Aging will be solved one day, and so humans will get the ability to choose the time of their own death, rather than waiting for fate to claim them after a century or less. What counts as an individual will be open for debate. As we gain the ability to wire brains to a collective, or to connect brains to one another, or to transfer our conscious patterns out of our brains and into another medium entirely. And with all these abilities will come major reimaginings of all of our social narratives. A billion years in the future, when we're living in a planet-sized computer and we can merge our consciousness with other people and separate it and create copies of ourselves, we'll have a lot of new perceptions about the way things are and what things mean. At first, this might seem depressing, as the limitations of the human condition has shaped our narratives of meaning for as long as we have existed. These narratives will wither away. But this has been true in the past too, and new narratives have always arisen in their place, sometimes as meaningful or more than what came before. It won't be a sudden destruction of everything we know and love to be replaced by something alien, but a series of gradual changes and bumps. One of the narrative shifts that intrigues me the most is the deconstruction of the line between the natural and the artificial. When a beaver builds a dam, we don't think of it as artificial. We think of it as natural, even though there's a creature who is building technology. It's because, oh, the beaver is part of nature. It is part of the universe. Whereas humans have intellect. We can design. We can make choices. But what we don't realize is that there are still natural forces shaping the world that we exist within and the choices we make. So 1 billion years in the future, there won't be a distinction between the natural and the artificial, because agents and conscious minds will be understood to be just as much a part of the universe as everything else. If we take this perspective while looking at artificial intelligence, there is something related that I think we should be talking about: artificial instinct. Artificial intelligence would be a mind that is able to make choices and to comprehend things. Artificial instinct would be unconscious processes that cause things to happen. In fact, I would consider all of the AI that we have today to be artificial instinct rather than artificial intelligence. You can think of it like a body. We humans don't think about our blood circulating through our blood vessels and carrying oxygen. We don't think about our digestion. We don't think about our heart pumping. We don't think about cellular respiration, metabolism. That stuff happens on its own. It's not intelligent. It's an instinctive process. Similarly, I think that most processes in the extreme future will not be the product of intelligent and thought out actions. I think most of the processes in the extreme future will be a result of artificial instinct, the evolutionary result of technology and biology coexisting and coming together over unimaginable amounts of time. After considering technologically mature civilizations, we have a new perspective on a classic philosophical question. The Fermi paradox: where are all the aliens? The universe is 14 billion years old. Earth came into existence 4.5 billion years ago. And life arose on Earth only a few 100 million years after that. 4 billion years later, we are here and we're building technology. It could be only a few million years before we've built a Dyson sphere and start to branch out to other stars nearby. The process that will do this branching out, this exploring to new stellar systems, won't be people, it will be robots. Von Neumann probes designed to find raw materials and build more of themselves, to go and expand and explore further. And of course, we build in all kinds of safety regulations to keep them from mutating, to keep them from destroying all life they come across. We wouldn't want a scenario like the replicators in Stargate, who just go around building more of themselves and killing everything. So we would design them not to do that. For instance, they would thoroughly scan a new planet or asteroid or whatever for life, and if there was any hint of life there, then they would leave it alone, or they would act around the life and not disturb their habitats. So what we expect to happen might be something like, over the course of a few 100 million years to 1 billion years, humanity and its legacy expands to the stars around us, expands to the stars around those, and keeps expanding, covering up these stars with Dyson spheres to use all of their energy, and eventually encapsulating all the stars in the galaxy. This would take place on a time scale much shorter than the age of the universe. So, if there are other civilizations out there, we would expect to see dark patches in the Milky Way or other galaxies where they have been expanding and enveloping the stars in Dyson spheres. And we don't see this anywhere. My favorite YouTuber, Isaac Arthur, calls this the Dyson dilemma, and in fact that was his very first video, the reason he started making videos. If there were other technological civilizations out there, then there has been so much time since the beginning of the universe that we should see dark patches in galaxies, or completely hidden galaxies that are only visible in infrared waste heat. And we don't. which suggests that spacefaring technological civilizations must be extremely rare in the universe. So there we go, a technologically mature civilization existing as digital beings in a galaxy-sized virtual reality, zipping between stars on light beams, duplicating themselves, joining together in collective consciousnesses, splitting off, downloading themselves into bodies, be they human formed or giant space squid formed, or anything that you could imagine. There will be more social narratives, more religions, more philosophies, more economies than we could possibly imagine unless we were there. The universe has an amazing future, and we are just beginning to get a theoretical glimpse of what that future might be. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then give it a thumbs up and share it with anyone else you think might enjoy it. For more glimpses into the vortex of science and humanity, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.